Hello, and welcome to a grab and go put on by me, Christine, the teen librarian at the Jones Creek branch of the East Baton Rouge Parish Library System. Today, we will be making felt fruit appliques. The materials you will need are a 3-inch embroidery hoop, a piece of fabric, an embroidery needle, embroidery floss in yellow and green, little yellow felt squares, a green felt leaf top, a golden pineapple body, and scissors. Let's begin. Alright, our first step will be to put our fabric inside of our hoop. We're going to put down our continuous hoop, center that in the middle of our fabric, and then take our other hoop and loosen the screw a bit, then push it down over the fabric and the hoop. Then tighten this screw back up. You can also give it some gentle tugs on the side to get it nice and taut. Next, we need to thread our needle. Let's start with green. This is a piece of embroidery floss. It's been split in half. A standard thing of embroidery floss is 6 individual little strands. This one is only 3. Pinch your floss between your thumb and your pointer finger and slide your needle onto that floss. Pull some through, but leave most of it as a long tail. Now we're going to position our pineapple top. It may help to also put your pineapple body on to get an idea for where the center is, or if you want to make it off center or how upside down. The screw will be the top, so orient towards that. So I'll hold that in place with a pin and grab my needle. I'm going to tie a knot in the far long end of my embroidery floss. And then I'm going to come from this side and come up on this one. Now, that's not through my felt, so that's not good for the applique. I'm going to bring my needle somewhere else, and that's a nice neat little corner there, so we'll start there. I'll pull my thread all the way through until I feel the knot, and then we'll keep going. I like putting the head of the needle underneath my fingernail. I feel like it gives me a nice bit of control. We're just going to go forward about 1/4 of an inch and pull through. And we're doing this in an extremely simple stitch, so our next thing is to push the needle back up from the bottom through the felt. Put it under my thumbnail. You don't have to, but I like to. And go back down. Now that this is on, I can remove my pin. And here are our first 2 stitches. So I'll continue outlining all of the leaves until I get back over here to the far side. This pit right here will be covered by the pineapple, so we don't actually need to do anything there. I find that I know where my thumb is even when I'm going from the other side. So if I have my pointer finger and my thumb pinching where I want the needle to come up next, I can sort of find where I am more accurately than just a blind, unfeeling stab. Oh, but see here? I made a mistake. I went around the entire hoop instead of just up and down through the fabric. So I took my needle off, all that threading hard work gone, and I'm pulling it out till it's not wrapped around the project. Now I have to thread again. It's just how things are. I'll go through that hole I made. It's perfectly valid. Come back up. And I am appliquing. I'm leaving a little bit between the thread and the edge. The edges of the felt will just sort of pull away, so it's good to have a little bit of an allowance there. It is totally okay to have to poke the head of your needle through a couple of times before you find just the right spot. Alright, I think you've gotten the idea, so let's meet up when I've gotten to the end. Here we go. Now, let's look at the back. Right here, I got a knot in my thread, and rather than try and undo it, because I wasn't very sure I could, I just left it. I can give it a little twist. A little twist in on itself. And it will be fine. It's just like that. It's fine. But now that we've reached the end of this, I'm going to tie a knot on purpose in this end. And hold it down with my thumb so it's pretty close to the actual end of the fabric, and give it a little snip. Now we unthread our needle on purpose and get out our yellow thread. We'll tie a knot in the long end just like we did with the green. We'll bring in our pineapple body and put that on top and covering the bottom of our pineapple fronds. I'll use a pin to hold it in place. Now we're going to stitch a line around the outside of our pineapple. It doesn't really matter where we begin or end, but I think I want to start up here and sew through both the pineapple and a little bit of the green underneath. With those stitches done, I'll remove my pin and continue stitching. I'll meet you at the end. I'm almost done, but I wanted to show you this. You see how my floss is sort of twisting with itself? If you hold one end and allow your needle to twist, this will work itself out and your floss won't be as tangly anymore. You can do that whenever it starts bothering you. Alright, we're done with that. If we turn it over, we see a nice little circle of yellow stitches. You can either have a longer tail and tie the two together, this end and that end, to make a knot, or do the same as we did on the green. Work that knot down near the face of the fabric and snip it off. Now, if you want to be done right here, you can be done right here. But we have these little felt squares, and those are meant to give some texture to our pineapple. So the plan is to have 3 squares going up the center of the pineapple. And they're on an angle, so they're actually more like diamonds. And then fill in 1, 2, 3, 4, and 2 half ones right here. So take your scissors, cut one square in half, and fill in the extra little space. Our next step is just take off all the ones that you're not actively working on. I'm going to start up at the top with this guy. I'm going to rethread my needle with green, and in my example piece I did a stitch called a French knot in the middle of each of these, but I have decided that French knots are a bit too much of a bother for how much reward they get, and I'm going to not instruct you on those and instead suggest you do just one little stitch across the middle, or maybe a little plus or cross sign, or a little V shape to give it that sort of pineapple twist. I'll try the V shape, but maybe I'll try all sorts of different shapes for variety. Knot the far end of my green string. Hold this down with my thumb. Come through, guided by my pointer finger in the back. Go down. Come up over here. Go down the same hole, or close enough. There. Let's do the other 8. Well, here are a variety of different ways you could fasten down the middle of your pineapple squares. I think my favorites are the V and the cross, but the little 3-way T or Y is also a pretty valid shape. Here's what the back looks like. It's very traveling around, but that's okay. No one sees the back. I'm going to go back around and change the ones I don't like to a more green stitch, and then tie off my knot. Alright, here's what I've done to add more green. Now, with a threaded needle of yellow thread, I'll tie off the end. And what I want to do now is add some lines in between these guys. So I'll start down over here and make my way up. I'm going to use quite big stitches this time as an aesthetic choice, and also just to let you guys know, you don't have to do the tinier stitches that I was doing. You can do the big ones. It's fine. Alright, once I've got to the top, I'll travel around the back to here and go back down. Now I could stop here, but I'm going to do ones going in the other crosswise direction. And there we go. Turn it to the back and tie this off in a knot. Hold that down, pull the slack, and cut off the end. Now, on my first one that I made, aside from doing the French knots, I also stitched around the edge of each of my pineapple squares with 4 stitches, but I think on this one I shall not. If you want to, you certainly can, but I'm going to go for a less stitched look on this piece, which means I am done, and it is time to get all this fabric up and collected in the back so it's a nice, neat hanging pineapple art. So to do that, we are going to do a big stitch in the circle, about an inch away from the hoop. I'm going to tie a quite big knot this time, going around 3, maybe 4 times, because I will need it to be quite bulky so that when I pull this like a drawstring, it does not pull through. There we go. Nice and chunky. Alright, I'll start here and make big rough stitches by going in and out and not even taking my needle out of the fabric in between each stitch, because I don't really need to do that. Alright, you can already see it gathering up, but when I pull on my thread, yes, everything comes into a nice neat little bundle in the middle. I'm going to push this down and sew that by just doing a little zigzag that does not go through to the front. And I think that's good. I'm going to make a tiny little stitch through one of the folds and tie my knot around that to seal everything off. Cut that end. And we are done. If you want, you can use a little bit of your spare thread to make a little loop to hang your art by. So, here are 2 ways or interpretations you could go for your felt fruit applique. You could do even more stitching. You could add little bits to the side. You could do whatever you want, because it is your art project. And I hope you have enjoyed your art project. So if you have, please leave positive feedback on social media and return to the library for more grab and go activities.